Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Do More Than Exist podcast. I have an awesome guest here on the podcast today, my friend Zach Davis.
How's it going?
Doing good. He's here. He's a police officer in Danville, Illinois, and he is someone who we grew up playing. We just had the fiercest basketball battles growing up. He was someone, but also he was someone I always aspired to be like. Anywhere you went, you just had this positive energy about yourself that you just always had. You connected with everybody. You were always polite, kind, but I always admire how you carried yourself. And so, man, I appreciate you being on the podcast. I know, I've always learned from you as I've grown up, and I've always modeled myself after you. And so I'm glad that my viewers and people get an opportunity to do that too. So, Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, the starting point for all achievement for me is belief. And that is one thing I feel like you've always had. You've always had a deep belief in yourself. And so tell me a little bit about your story, where you're from, and where you developed that belief in yourself that you could pretty much do anything you set your mind to.
Like I said, from Peoria, Illinois, born and raised, District 150 kids. So that belief definitely is 100% built in the house. My mother and my father. My mom, you can do anything. You can be anything, and that's where we learned that. Having an older sister was the same way. Mm-hmm. She, we just had that foundation from grandmother, cousins, aunts. Always harping on education. And no, I was not the greatest student, but just having two older sister and the twin sister Jessica, them being successful in school, kind of like you can't be the one not to make it.
Right, everybody else successful.
Yeah, everybody's successful. You had to do that.
Yeah.
My mom, a very beautiful, smart woman, coming from how she was raised, and then my dad, completely polar opposites of how he was raised, but still always saying, hey, get that degree, education and everything. That's something they can't take from you. So we've always had that within the house, and it was just always like that.
Yeah, they always kind of just instilled that belief in you.
And belief in love, hey, if the world doesn't have you, we have you.
Right.
And that's, I talk to my mom all the time, I talk to my dad all the time, but it was always, we love you. We say we love each other. We meet up as a family. We love each other, and it's always been that way.
Gotcha. So tell me a little bit about going into your high school experience and kind of going into college. Tell me about your high school experience.
It was a typical high school experience. You get to have fun. You play at Peoria Central with something. My older sister being a cheerleader. You coming out to the band. That's always what I want to do. Break to the banner, smack the backboard. That was the goal. Always. And then, going into high school, coming out of 8th grade, which, again, we all did, you had the battles with you guys at Lindbergh, Roosevelt, everybody, we all knew each other and all growing up and having that one goal, which Peoria was to play basketball.
Right.
And it wasn't necessarily to go to the NBA. I was always brought up at that basketball was a hobby, not a career. So, again, always still knowing I was going to go to college no matter what happened on this court, I was going to college.
Right.
But high school was Peoria Central. Peoria Central at the time was, I think, at the time when I went, was the most diverse high school in Central, So Sterling, again, going to Sterling was a diverse school. So Woodrow Wilson, a diverse school. So you weren't really worried about getting along with people, not getting along with people, because it's the same group of people you've always dealt with and always been around. So I think being in Peoria Central definitely helped. The teachers, it was just learning experience. You learned and I enjoyed it. And again, my high school, was I the best player on the team? No. Did we have the best team at the time? Yes. So did that make high school a little bit better? Did you have to necessarily do every single test? No, you didn't. But
there were perks that came along. There was best team in the state.
Exactly, it was perks to it. But it was definitely a learning process, and I think that's where you kind of start coming into yourself in high school. Girls. Growing up, your dad, parents always try to shield you from girls, but clearly that's going to happen. So you got to deal with that battle. And again, just you start coming in yourself. You start realizing what you want to do, who you want to become, and you think you know what you want to do, who you want to become. And then you get into college, you realize that's everything I thought I knew, and and did was completely wrong.
It shifts.
It
changes.
yeah.
Right.
So, like I said, I think high school was just a huge learning experience.
Yeah.
And I loved high school. Would I go back? No, but you know, I think the being on the basketball team, and having just that experience in high school was like none other.
Yeah.
So you know, it was fun, and I still talk to some of the guys today. But it was fun.
You mentioned college, and college for me, you know, during those years, that was my years of exponential growth. That is when I, you know, recognized, okay, who I am, what am I about, and that's where I started to develop the habits of how to reach my own personal success and how to reach my own goals.
Right.
High school, that wasn't really it for me. It was where I kind of failed a lot.
Okay.
And it was where I learned a lot of lessons, but then in college is where I started to apply them, and I started to kind of do trial and error of you know, what works for me and who I wanted to become. What period of your life was most influential to you as far as your growth as a person? And then what habits did you learn during that period that allowed you to become successful today?
I think with college. College. College was, looking back, it was probably the most turbulent time for me and my family. You know, I wasn't necessarily a knucklehead in high school, but I became more of a knucklehead in college.
Sure.
That's when I think, you know, it happened. You know, I did 2 years at Parkland, and then decided one day that I was just going to drop out. You know?
Sure.
And I thought I was going to start becoming like this Call of Duty superhero and play video games the rest of my life.
Right.
And so I pretty much took a year off of school.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't know that, but yeah, I was still buying all the shoes that we see.
Right,
you know,
right.
I worked at Radio Shack, still got to go do whatever I wanted, still 100% getting supported by my family.
Yeah.
My parents are still paying my rent, still giving me money to go to eat food and all those other things. But I think I don't necessarily want to say it was an entitlement, but this idea of entitlement that I had, you know, people that knew I grew up very blessed. You know, I didn't need for anything growing up.
Right.
And I think that sense of entitlement, like, well, my parents got me. You know, and I hate to say it now, but it was an arrogance that I carried with me. Like, you know, who are you? You know, and so that happening, and then the birth of my first daughter, Parker, and everything that came with that. And again, you have this arrogance. My parents had me, and it was just, I think that's when I learned the most. And I think it's, truth to be honest, that's when I was like the most disrespectful.
Okay.
You know, so looking back, that was the time of growth. Learn how to talk to people, appreciating what you have, what you've been given. And so college, I think, again, for people that get to go to college, that's where you learn.
Right.
You know, now your parents, you're on your own.
You're on your own. They can't really walk this path for you. Right.
And I'm sure my parents had this conversation privately amongst themselves. But, you know, at some point, like, you know, look, let them go.
Yeah.
You know, and looking back, I said probably just disrespectful in, like I said, the arrogance. I mean, period. You know, dealing with people. So if I could take that back, I definitely would.
Sure. I'm glad you say that. One of the things for me, you know, having a very similar upbringing as you, I had successful parents, didn't need for anything. Anything I pretty much wanted, I had.
Right.
And so what that taught me in high school was things typically came easy to me. I didn't really have to earn them as much. So that taught me I didn't have to work as hard.
Right.
Now, my parents weren't saying that, but that's what I internalized.
Exactly.
And so working through high school, I expected things to be easy. And then the results weren't coming. You know, I wasn't getting results. And the results that I wanted from basketball or even in my grades, it just wasn't there because, well, one, I wasn't putting in the work. Right. I was expecting to rely on talent. I was expecting things to be easy just because I'd grown a sense of entitlement because that's kind of how it always had been for me.
Exactly.
So when I got to college, you know, I went to ICC for 2 years and then worked at the mall during those 2 years. And now those years of growth where it's like, no. If I'm going to be anything, it's going to be on me.
Exactly.
It's going to be on what I'm doing. And then, you know, it was great to see even with my parents say, okay, I think it's clicking for him at this point in college where, you know, he's taking his goals, he's taking his life seriously.
Right.
And but that was a huge piece was I felt like I had that entitlement piece too and a little bit of arrogance. But then it caused me to fail, and that's when I really learned. That's where I was like, oh man, like if I'm not putting myself in a position to succeed. If I'm not working hard, I'm not going to become what I want to become.
Exactly.
I'm not going to, my parents don't have me like that,
Exactly.
or they shouldn't have me like that as I grow, go into my 20s.
Exactly.
And so that was a huge, lesson. I appreciate you sharing. Now I want to switch gears and talk about your career.
Yeah.
Your career leading up to a police officer. What was that period like for you? And then, tell me about the journey of becoming a police officer.
Right. Well, growing up, my mom ran 911 for the southern part of Illinois. Mm-hmm. So I always heard talking about police officers.
Right.
Neighbor up the street, Elmore Johnson, who worked for the Peoria Police Department, was always coming around bringing his police car. So we always definitely were. I was able enough to be around law enforcement and then just so like that. But I originally wanted to be a firefighter. Okay, so that was the goal. My mom said it was too dangerous, so I picked to be a police officer. That's the only reason why I didn't pursue being a firefighter as much. But I've always wanted to be a police officer. U.S. Marshals with it was Wesley Snipes.
Well,
okay, so that was that's
the iconic movie.
That's solidified, right? I want to do this.
Yeah.
So that's kind of when it started. Then went to Parkland, decided to take a year off, play video games, and finally, when my older sister has a degree, my cousin is now everybody's graduating. Mm-hmm. Twin sisters got her master's degree before I ever even think to graduate at this point. So it's like, okay. So I went to SIU, Carbondale, got my act together, graduated there with my degree in administrative justice and go from there.
Okay.
And immediately get hired on, graduated in May, immediately get hired on in November with the Vermilion County Sheriff's Department. Okay, so that's how that started me kind of getting into this line of work.
Sure.
And I was telling you earlier, I started off in the jail.
Yeah.
Start off in the jail, coming where I'm from, and not that I could not speak to people, not that I couldn't deal with people, but you see it on TV, it's not TV.
Right.
You go they shut the doors behind you, you have a key,
yeah.
You have 300 something plus inmates, and the doors are locked. It's meant to keep people in, not let people out.
Right.
So that was a complete culture shock for me, but it was also a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And the wake-up call was like, well, do I really want to do this?
Right.
And I was explaining to you, it's crazy because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with personalities for 8, 16 hours out of the day, however many days out the week. But you can pinpoint somebody that reminds you of somebody.
Right.
Like I said, it's
that you've known before.
Yeah, it's like you don't become friends with them, but you create this rapport with
you get to try to understand them.
Yeah. You do, so you understand it. But the crazy thing is your rapport is with murderers. Your rapport is with child pedophiles and rapists that have done these heinous, insane things. Sure. And to this day, I would say the murderers are the nicest people you ever met in your life. Mm-hmm. There's a guy, I won't say his name. He chopped up a lady, burned her up, and to this day, he's the nicest person I've ever met in my life.
Wow.
Outside of what he did.
Yeah. Your interaction with him while he was in jail
even
was
with the people he knew on the street.
Yeah.
They think he was this nice guy, church going.
Yeah.
He had issues. Who doesn't? Mm-hmm. But that's what you dealt with, and you have to somehow mentally turn that off.
Sure.
Go home, and so it's just a crazy thing to think about.
I would assume the communication piece, like while working in a jail setting, became your most effective,
100%,
effective tool in not just control but keeping organization of the jail and of your job, and especially with coworkers.
Exactly.
How did that start to develop for you as far as your communication with? I feel like you've always had great communication, but in that setting, when you're dealing with people, that have committed these type of crimes, that communication tool is huge.
Verbal judo.
Yeah, verbal judo.
Hey, with my mouth, the people that know me, I can talk myself in a lot of things. And I try to talk myself out of a lot.
Right?
So, you do. You just have to. You're not sympathizing with them, but you do have to have some type of empathy.
Right.
For however long you're there, whatever problems you have going on outside the world don't matter because this person's problems matter at this time are more important than yours.
Right.
You might not think that, but you need to display that at the time. So you do learn how to speak with people, black, white, green, or brown. someone doesn't like me because of the color of my skin. Someone doesn't like me because of the badge that's on my shirt.
Right.
Without ever saying a word to me. So yeah, you do have to learn how to speak to people and not have such a anger towards what you don't believe in.
Right.
You know, everybody's
Right.
ideologies. You know, your religious beliefs, your political beliefs. At that point, it's all out the door. We have one goal, and the goal is to go home.
Right. Right.
And make sure the situation, the jail, the environment that you in is safe for everybody, not just yourself and the people that you're watching. So yeah,
Right. That's huge. So now fast forward. You know, you did that for 5 years. Now fast forward to now you're about to become a police officer. What was that journey like? Starting, getting to become a police officer.
Get the call. You get the call and it's pure rush, adrenaline, excitement. Because one of my good friends was already a deputy, and then another good friend, she was the class before me. So I mean, you take this group that we all start off in the jail. Now we're on the road, so it's just like, oh man, here we go. Kick down doors and do all this stuff.
Yeah,
and it is. You come, little Zach again. You get the badge, the gun, the police car, whatever reason why you initially wanted to be a police officer.
Right.
Catch the bad guys. I want to go fast. I want to turn lights. I want to run red lights. That's what you do it for initially.
Yeah.
And of course, you go through the process of PTI and dealing with that, having to deal with 50 people you don't know.
That 12 weeks.
That 12 weeks at U of I. And then coming from the jail again in Danville. Mm-hmm. So my experience, first of all, I'm born in Peoria.
Yeah.
So that's a plus in itself from that, just learning how to deal with people. Then I'm working in jail in Danville. Mm-hmm. So then you have all these people that come in and I'm going to do this, or in this situation,
right.
You have this arrogance of people, well, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way. No one's going to. It's like, that's not how it is. You haven't dealt with anybody.
Right.
So it's just excitement. So then with the 12 weeks, and then I didn't necessarily have the stress of FTO because I knew the guys I was working with.
Oh, okay.
I kind of had an idea how we already did things in 5 years. So it wasn't that too much of a transition other than now I'm outside instead of inside.
Right.
So I was confident in knowing what I wanted to do, the law, et cetera, et cetera. So that transition wasn't too hard. But again, it's the greatest call of your life.
Right.
For me.
So what's one thing you wish you would have known at the beginning of your career? What's one thing that caught you by surprise when starting to become a police officer? If any.
There's tons, we don't have enough time to discuss that. I think one of the craziest things, I was trying to do my buddy was actually doing something in Champaign, started non-for-profit. I asked the sheriff for help. Okay. Just say, not even to help, but hey, this is what we're going to be doing. Mm-hmm. And the first thing this man says to me goes, hey, you're going to get told a lot of no's, so it's not going to be from people that look like you. Or look like me. It's going to be from people that look like you, reference to me. I was like, what is this man talking about?
Right.
So of course, you get on calls and you go in situations, and it's true. Mm-hmm. Your biggest backlash is from people that look like me.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's, I think, looking back, I don't know, and it's crazy. You want everybody to do this job. You want people, but it's looking back. It's like, man, would you even get in this career? Mm-hmm. I watched your podcast earlier, talking with Derek and you guys. Whole identity issue comes into play.
Sure, is this for me? Is this what I want to do? Is it? You aren't, and they know. They know where. They know you didn't come from where they came from, but you don't care. It's like, hey,
sure.
And it's just crazy. So now looking back, it's like, it's a love-hate relationship with this job. Mm-hmm. And I have no problem saying that, and I'm outspoken about that. But going back and looking back, what I probably would have did, which you see a lot of kids doing now, being able to go through all these career events and hiring fairs I'm able to go to. They don't want to go to policing. They want to do the mentoring. They want to do the social work aspect of it. And so it's like, well, maybe that's maybe where I wanted to go with it too. But I'm allowed in this facet, in this outlook of life. I'm allowed to go talk to kids. I'm allowed to go to schools and have these conversations.
You get to have that peace as an officer.
You do, and that's definitely the benefit. But it's still. There's positive and negatives in all of it.
Right. So tell me this. when it comes to habits, and I know you formed a lot of good habits from one starting in the jail, and then that experience coming into being a police officer. What would you say are the key good habits of being a good police officer?
You have to be open.
Yeah.
It's crazy, speaking from I'll be blunt. Speaking from someone who is raised in a rural county, in a rural town, and the only outlook or the only idea of a African American person or someone of color is what you've seen on TV.
Right.
Okay, so that's wrong. Not everybody in white, black, green, or brown is different. So. Not every black person is a gangbanger. Not every white person is a meth head.
Right.
So it's just you have to be open.
Right.
And I think as police officers we forget we were young. We forget we messed up. We did something that we didn't get caught at. Doing.
Right.
So I think you have to be open. But it's just you see it all the time. So you do have this. You start to get this jaded, negative view, and so that's why you see older police officers, don't talk to me.
Right.
You see so much during your career, and it can take a toll.
It does.
But it's just
it absolutely does.
It can shift your outlook on just you're seeing everyone. You're seeing people all day long, 8 hours a day, usually longer.
Yeah.
You're seeing people in their worst moments. And that's what you repetitively see.
And not only that, I think we have the right to come into your home, your dwelling, and we are interrupting your peace.
Right.
Or whatever control you think you have, which is usually your home.
Right.
Now you're letting people you don't know. We're taking our muddy boots through your house, yada yada, and we're now taking control of a scene. So no, of course that person will be. You're not going to be happy. You're not going to be happy with me. I'm not going to be happy with you. Is the reason why I'm here.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. So you do. And for 8 hours, 16 hours, whatever you have going on, your daughter might be sick, babies might be sick, girlfriend, whoever yelling at you, wife yelling at you, parents, so you have to completely compartmentalize that, put it away, and now I have to deal with everybody else's their problems, their worst moments at that time. So it does take a toll.
It can, yeah. And so now I want to move to while being an officer is already one of the hardest jobs, in my opinion, in the nation. In recent years, it's gotten even harder due to the social, with the social climate of race relations with police officers in the black community. So how has race impacted your job, and what are some things you do to try to strengthen the relationship between the police and the community?
Again, a loaded question.
Yeah, so that's a loaded question.
I can't tell you how many times I've been blocked by close friends of mine because of these conversations every time a video comes out. But for me, I will say this, let's not forget I'm black. I am a black man. I'm a proud black man.
Yeah.
But one of the best things I've ever learned is, I wear the badge, but I also match the description.
Right.
So that's it is what it is.
Sure.
And you have good police officers, you have bad police officers. You always will and always have.
Right.
And every time a shooting happens, with what basically just happened in Fort Worth. Is it Fort Worth that just happened in Texas?
Yeah.
You have a situation that is not uncommon. But if you're scared to do the job as an officer, I don't think if you're scared to talk to people in general, this probably is not the job for you. If you're going into situations because you're afraid this person's black or this person's white, you don't need to do that job. So now you've taken this person who was scared and given them the power of a gun, and he thinks he can do whatever he wants to do.
Sure.
Not every encounter I've had with police are good as a person. Not all of them are bad.
Sure.
Going to college, I had bad situations with police officers. I had a police officer pull me over, walk from my car, spit in front of my car, and tell me what I was doing here. So, so what I try to do is explain, hey, I'm just like you, especially in the urban communities. I'm
Right.
just like you.
Right.
You know, outside this badge, outside this uniform, you can go find me on the basketball court. You can find me playing around with my buddies. You can just, like, I'm no different.
Right.
Other than the fact that this uniform, that's all. That's the only thing that's separating us today. So you always try to build that rapport and have that, especially with the younger kids.
Right.
Because the youth is definitely lost. You know, we have a lost generation. We have a group of kids that they're refuse to be disrespected and take the level of someone telling them to shut up, that's now justifies
Just
that
authority or just absolutely.
that I can take your life, and so
Right.
we definitely have a lot of issues with that within policing itself. And again, you have guys that are older, are ready to go out the door, that don't want to deal with this person, that person.
Right.
But within my department, I will speak for my department. I highly doubt that I wake or anybody in my department wakes up and says, "Well, today I'm going to wake up, I'm going to kill somebody."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know that if you notice, if you knew all the things that is involved when it comes to a police shooting, I can't believe anybody would ever want to go through that. Period.
Right.
So I can't imagine that happen. But again, you have this power structure of guys coming in that don't need to be police officers, and I'm the law. This is what I'm telling you to do. You're going to do it, and I have the power to end your life to do if you don't, follow suit. So, and it's crazy, and I do want to say, my battles as a black man are not the battles of my grandmother. You know, I can sit at the front of the bus. I can sit at the back of the bus. I can go into any building I want to, as long as it's open. But we still have issues.
Right.
Okay. We still have issues. We had departments hiring. You know, I truly believe you need to hire people within the community. It's hard to hire guys that have grown out in the middle of nowhere, and then you're putting them in these urban situations that do not know how to react.
Never had an interaction with
of what they heard or what they what they believe, and I'm not saying right or wrong, but that's definitely an issue.
It makes it challenging in the communication piece, in the understanding piece.
And it's a huge issue, and again, it's someone. We all need to sit down, have the conversation, not be political about the conversation, and have the conversation. Because again, is law enforcement right all the time? Absolutely not. You know, do I get things wrong? Yes.
Sure.
But I always try to be respectful. I always try to have that conversation. I will listen to you. You listen to me.
Right.
But until that conversation truly happens, which has been said multiple times over I don't know how many years, the conversation has still not been had.
Right,
So that's why we have.
And it's interesting, just the national political conversation. It takes such a polarizing context of you're either for the women and men in blue, the women and men in blue, or you're not, And so when Black Lives Matter, came out, at the time I was studying to be a police officer. I was in, I was, at the PTI, the Police Training Institute, and it was interesting in how I started to kind of look at, I'm a black man, and I can recognize an officer, making a mistake, or his bias or his prejudice is influencing his police strategies or his police policies, and so he's targeting he or she could be targeting certain people.
Exactly.
I could recognize that. At the same time, there are good officers every single day that go to work, that just want to go home to their families, and they do a great job every day with not a pat on the back, and so. That is a challenge, and so when I'm having conversations about how to strengthen community and police relations, in my opinion, it can't start with, what side are you on first?
Exactly.
It has to be able to start with, listen, as a community, are we educated in understanding use of force policies?
Exactly.
Do we even know the law ourselves?
Exactly.
And then also, because I'm an African American and this is what's been happening across the country and it's taking this polarizing lens, should I expect special treatment? Should I expect, I understand fair and equal treatment, but now if I'm committing a crime, should I just expect you to let me go?
Exactly. It's true.
And so, that's an interesting, being able to as a black man, being able to see, that lens and being able to see through that lens and be able to see those conversations happen. And my goal has always been to strengthen the community and strengthen, police relations. And so, it's interesting being able to look at it from our lens.
It's true. And being, like I said, being a black man in law enforcement, there's not too many of us in our area.
Sure.
But you also, it's a constant battle because, the people that look like you, the people you deal with, black people, I grew up in a black family. I have black family. So, you don't want them to look at you, not fam, just the people you deal with, to look at you any differently because I'm you.
Right.
But you also got the buddies you work with thinking, well, who are you with?
Right.
And there's that constant battle of going back and forth. Like, well, wait a minute.
Seeing it from this way. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. It's a constant battle. It's like, well, I want to go home.
Yeah.
But I also want to be respectful. But, if things get down to it, it's like you
still have a job.
You got a job to do, and then you got your friends on what side. If this, what if this happened? What side would you pick?
Exactly.
So I'm gonna go home. So it's I don't know if there's necessarily a right or wrong answer to it, but it's an interesting perspective.
When I've had conversations with police officers in relation to speaking about certain incidents that have happened. I've seen police officers say, "Oh no, that was a bad, that was a bad move. That was a bad call. That wasn't, strategies of use of force.
Right.
This person's running away and it, gets shot in the back.
Wrong.
Oh, that's wrong. Flat out wrong. And so, it's great when, with getting to understand from an officer standpoint. But I think as a community, we just have to continue to have these conversations, not be afraid to have these conversations, and also, being able to bridge the divide, and being able to bridge. Listen, I respect and love police officers. As a black man, I want to see them go home to their families. I want to see them go to work every single day and do their job.
Right.
But also, at the same time, I can still be for Black Lives Matter and trying to tackle some of the racism and prejudices that exist out there in certain departments.
That's true.
And where it's plaguing their community, and where African Americans are getting arrested and at an alarming rate.
Exactly.
And so I appreciate you sharing your perspective on that. What advice would you give someone who's wanting to pursue a similar career?
Hey,
come into it with an open mind.
Right, come into it with an open mind. And I'll just say it, like, there's, again, I don't know, because we again, being able to go to different career fairs, we just don't, no one wants to do this job. State police are down with almost 1,000 officers. We can't get people to test for us. Peoria Police Department can't get people to test for them.
Sure.
You just have these issues, and it's the generations like, well, if you see what's going on TV, like, so I need to get up at work. I'm gonna get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm gonna put on this uniform to go get hated for 8 hours. That's if you look at the media, that's how it's perceived.
It would not. You wouldn't wake up with the sense of, well, let me go make my life harder than it is by being a police officer.
Exactly, and so And it's not a job if you just woke up and decide, okay, this is what I want to do. I think you truly have to have a heart for either you grew up in a police family, you grew up with that background, or you truly
truly internally want to do good, want to do good, and you want to be an officer. Exactly. And I think that's a great point, because I think that's true for any profession that you do, including and more importantly, police work. Because when you go into these roles, what you're asking for is, I'm going to take the good with the bad. And so, when you come into a profession, you have to know you're going to be challenged.
Exactly.
You're going to be challenged mentally, emotionally, physically, depending on various industries and different jobs. And I think it's important for people to ask themselves and inform, and educate themselves on what all comes with the job, and are they able, are they educated and knowledgeable enough to be able to withstand what comes with the job.
Exactly.
I think for any profession, I think someone should do that. I did that for my career, and at one point in time, I was a police officer, and I really had that feeling of, I don't know if this is for me. I really want that counseling piece and that mentoring and life coaching piece more.
Right.
And then I had to make that decision. Well, I think this is the route I should be going instead of the police route. But I think that's a great question everyone should be asking for themselves is am I willing to take everything that comes along with this career?
Yeah. Because it's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. It is what it is.
And so, some of the habits, just being a good police officer, being open-minded. I like what you say, being open-minded, using communication as a tool. I know at one point in time when I was working for Bradley University as an officer, I repeatedly heard officers say, your most effective tool and your biggest weapon is your mouth. Being able to communicate with people from all walks of life in different situations and different challenges.
Exactly.
That is going to get you much further than carrying a gun on your hip.
Exactly.
And that's something I never forgot. I learned that, and I knew that communication was always, communication, understanding was always the way to really be effective with people.
And that's not even just with this job, as anything.
Right.
You need to be able to communicate, and again, just dealing with people. Mm-hmm. This world is crazy enough, and that's what we get to do with as police officers. Enjoy that. We will take that in, soak that in, and hopefully we can provide that service that you guys or civilians don't necessarily have to deal with. We'll deal with the bad, and I guess that's the goal.
Sure.
But I mean, again, wake up with a smile on your face, and that's my goal. Wake up with a smile on my face, because at the end of the day, someone's going to try to take it from me. So don't start off with a bad day.
Keep that internal happiness.
Yeah, keep it happy.
Yeah,
so that's how it is.
So tell me this, Zach. Tell me, because one thing I think has made me who I am is learning from my failures. And there was a point in time when I was failing but wasn't learning from it.
Right.
Tell me, what do you feel like was your biggest failure? It could be any time period in your life, and tell me what you learned from it, and tell me how you applied it, kind of going forward, as an adult.
Just being, just a hard-headed. Mm-hmm. I'm a Gemini, so you can't.
People can't tell me. I already know.
You can't tell me, and not realizing. Especially, I'm focusing on my parents. As you get older, you realize, just having conversation with my father,
right.
stuff that he's gone through that I would never believe. You get older, it's like, well, maybe he did go through this situation. Now, me being an older, talking to kids, guys I coach, it's like, there's nothing you can't tell me that I have not done.
Right.
I've done it. I've seen it. I've done it, and so that's the part probably was not listening. Again, that comes with just being disrespectful and take in. Use the older people.
They have the wisdom. They have the knowledge. They've lived life.
Steve Graves, I remember talking to Steve and Josh and all them in the barbershop.
Yeah.
Zach, I ain't gonna have any kids. I ain't gonna have any kids. Well, shoot, I write all, I knock off 3 in a matter of a few years. It's like, so you definitely just not listening. And again, you have to realize, and you don't because you're young. Life is short.
Yeah.
Life is short. Luckily, we didn't lose anybody growing up. I didn't necessarily have family members that had died. We didn't lose our grandmother until we were older. So just realizing that life is short. Appreciate your mother. Appreciate your father. Appreciate your siblings. Appreciate the time.
Right.
You don't have time.
Absolutely.
Being in law enforcement, seeing the negative aspect of that.
Right.
As I mentioned, on an accident, this young woman has lost her life, and her phone is blowing up because people are texting her phone, not knowing what's going on. Like that.
Yeah.
So appreciate the time, and utilize it, because life is very short.
Absolutely, that is so true. Cherish people that are around you. Soak up, be a sponge, soak up anything that you can learn from anybody that's around you. I always kind of tell the students that I talk with, I said, the people closest to you typically aren't sending you off.
Exactly.
They're not going to send you down a bad path. And so, what's important is that they're listening. And so, Zach, I appreciate you sharing those things. One thing I always end my podcast with is we have shared a lot of information. We've shared a lot of habits of what makes you a successful officer. It's important for you, any viewers, any listeners that are watching, it's important to apply what you learn. Right. One of the things that I didn't do, I had the knowledge, and I used to love this quote, knowledge is power.
Right.
And then I got to the point where I'm like, well, I had the knowledge when I was in high school. I just didn't apply it.
Exactly.
And so, I changed that quote to apply knowledge is power. And so anybody that's watching, if you've heard good habits such as open, communication, being open-minded, being able to talk to, different people from different walks of life, take those habits and apply it to your own life and apply it to your own goals, apply it to your own dreams.
Absolutely.
And the more that you can learn from your failures, the more that you can learn from other people, the more successful and the better off they will be.
Exactly.
Period. And so, Zach, appreciate you coming out on the
Man,
podcast.
it was fun, man.
Great having you. You've always been
Exactly.
someone I've looked up to and how you carry yourself, and I've always modeled myself after you. And so I think it's always important to anyone that you admire and anyone that you feel like has always been a role model for you. I think it's important to tell those people.
Exactly.
And so, Zach, you've always been that for me, and I appreciate that. Being
Appreciate
that
it.
example for me growing up.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And so, anyone, if you take these habits, apply them to your own life. If you like what you've heard today, please hit the like and subscribe button. Until then, I will see you next time. See ya.
See you.